and see if it honestly does something. Of course, I thought of something else. I don't know how we're gonna read the super chats. We'd have to open.
On my phone.
Yeah, we'd have to look at them on the phone.
Yeah. All right, so we are in fact live now.
Okay.
All right, so, all right, so here's the deal, guys. We are locked out of the page that allows us to set up the live stream, so we can't actually see anything right now.
Yeah.
We are, the super chat is currently off because this is the portion of the podcast where Brian and I just sort of have our conversation. But for now, I suppose we're just sort of going to do it this way rather than having me look at my phone and going through super chat once that comes up. Hopefully this will somehow resolve itself because I have no idea how. Brian's doing the pop-out chat right now.
All right, I was able to get to it from the regular YouTube page.
All right.
And if I F5 that, John, will I get a chance to do it a second time? Like have two pop-outs.
All right, let's see.
Let's see if I can run two of them at the same time. And can I close all this?
Let's see.
Close tabs, which gives us this, and that works.
Yeah, so basically here's the deal. Because we can't get into that place that lets you set up the live stream, it's repeating the title that we already used for last week's podcast, but we can always go back and edit that part. That doesn't really matter. Like,
right.
The title is the least important part.
Yeah.
But basically now we have two pop-ups set up and we're able to I guess get this show on the road. So welcome to RCR Podcast not number 42.
Yeah, it's
because
43.
We're on 43 now.
Do you want to do a hold for sound?
We could. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Test.
Oh, me. Test, me.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody, to the Regular Car Reviews podcast. I am Nick.
I'm Brian.
And we are in the portion of the show where we just sort of chat, back and forth about our week before we open up the super chat, which I don't even know if we're going to be able to do today because we ran into technical difficulties that have locked us out of the page where we can set all that up. So
We'll see what happens in a half an hour. We're going to keep this going for about 30 minutes. And if everything goes well, we'll be back after that for your questions.
Yeah. And if not, we'll let you know on Twitter that it's a no-go.
Yeah.
But either way, for now...
you have a movie to review, and I have a big mess of chicken to eat because I came right from the gym, and I need my protein. And it's cooking away in the kitchen, and I've got chicken on the brain.
Nice. But so, yeah, have at it. Basically, this is going to be the equivalent of a Roman and you for about 10 minutes while Brian eats. But I went and saw the movie 8th Grade, which is the directorial debut of one of my favorite stand-up comedians and one of my influences when it comes to comedy music. Because when I first started doing original songs for RCR, which, I mean, most people, they don't really distinguish between the parodies and the originals. If it's an original and they just don't know what it is, they'll just assume it's a parody of a song they've never heard of. But ultimately, the movie 8th Grade, it's this incredibly rich in verisimilitude, in the sense that it's about this 8th grader, obviously, named Kayla Day, who is trying to become a YouTuber and sets up these really horrible vlogs that are almost sort of like, pep talks to herself. And they're kind of intercut with scenes where she could really use those pep talks, but it's played so naturalistically. my nephew is part of that generation, and so there are a lot of things that I notice that he does that some of these kids do, like saying LeBron James for no reason and doing the weird like dances like flossing and all that other stuff. And that stuff is weirdly hilarious if you know kids who do that today. But the other side of it is also that, you know, it's the cringe humor of adults trying to identify with this generation. Like the principal walks in and does a dab for like no reason. He just walks in and goes like that, and it's preposterous. And they put on a reproductive health film where the narrator tells the students that it's gonna be lit, which it's just, but she says it in the most Midwestern mom kind of way, like it's going to be lit. But ultimately, it's one of the most anxiety-inducing. It really is one of the most anxiety-inducing scenes. It possesses one of the most anxiety-inducing scenes in any movie that I've seen in a very long time. And part of it is the reality that this happens to so many people throughout adolescence. You know, it's stuff that happens to actual girls, and maybe it's something that you don't necessarily have a frame of reference for yourself if you're a dude, but I feel like in a lot of ways it's universal, because if you have empathy, you should be able to empathize with what this girl is going through. But it also subverts a lot of tropes in that, you know, characters that you expect to secretly be awful really aren't, and characters that you expect to be deeply deeply and desperately out of touch are actually some of the most in touch people. This movie has a parental pep talk that rivals Call Me By Your Name for the best pep talk that I've ever seen committed to film from a parent to a child. It's amazing and it's incredible. Call Me By Your Name still has the best one though. But there's also, and sorry for all the and ums, I had a really good analysis of this movie in my head and then I completely blanked on all of it. But ultimately, it's one of my favorite movies of the year. It's not a movie where a ton of things happen in the traditional narrative sense, but things are obviously happening, you know? It's something where, say, she goes to a pool party, you know? And going to a pool party, you're reliving that weird, awkward part of your youth where you're almost pushed into a place where you're forced to make friends. It's a sink or swim, no pun intended, sort of environment where I was kind of having stress flashbacks of being in that same position of, I don't know anybody here. I got to find someone who's as big a loser as me. Oh my God, I'm the biggest loser here. And suddenly realizing that the best that you can do is try to fake your way through it because you're at the popular kid's house somehow for some reason. And it makes no sense how you even got invited there. But not to spoil anything, needless to say, it's a very interesting movie. The actress Elsie Fisher is a friggin' revelation. And also the script is very well... It's just so expertly constructed in that there's structure, but you don't see the writerly hand of the screenwriter in it. And it's very much in Bo Burnham's comedic style, which I love. So ultimately, huge recommendation. Oh, and the script also has one of the best lines that ever describes what it's like to live with anxiety at that age. So I would almost recommend like just seeing it just for that, because I don't want to spoil the line, but it's an amazing line. And I almost wanted to, it was a write it down type thing, but you can't write it down because someone already did it. But it's a fantastic movie. And I would actually rank it up there with one of the best movies that I've seen in the entire calendar year, which goes all the way back to like August of last year. Bo Burnham is just really fascinating behind the camera. You know, he makes a lot of interesting choices and he incorporates music in a very interesting way. The woman who does the score, it's kind of the smash cuts are married to the musical score. And, you know, it's just such a shame that it's R-rated in the sense that a lot of the people who need to see this the most won't be able to. But I think ultimately,
what's it R-rated for?
Language, and for basically it's. I read an interview that basically said that Bo Burnham was told that if he wanted the PG-13 rating, he would have to cut some of the swears, but he would also have to remove references to the kids possibly sending racy photos to each other. And that was such an integral part of the story to him that he couldn't cut it, you know?
When I was in indoor drumline, someone took a picture of their dick with a Polaroid camera in a bathroom in Wildwood, New Jersey at the championships.
Yeah, it
was my camera, but it wasn't my dick.
Well, you did tell me before once that the marching band are like the horniest people on the planet.
Oh yeah.
And I would say the same thing about drama kids, especially in college, but not necessarily in high school. Although I know of other people who are like, oh man, the crazy stuff that people got into in high school. And I'm just like, I never was crazy in high school, even though I did drama in high school, which is just but. And then ultimately 8th Grade, go see it. Definitely an awesome film. So yeah. And then on Saturday, I went on a date, which was very nice. This was easily, by orders of magnitude, the best date I've been on in a really long time. The girl was great, and we had a lot in common, actually, strangely enough, just in terms of, you know, interest in certain, like, artistic endeavors. Like she isn't really... Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Awesome.
Is that horseradish?
Yes. This was given to me by Nush from Moyer's Car Care. He is a fan of spicy food, and he bought this.
You gotta
just read the label.
It's Rita's fresh horseradish. It's hotter than hell. Yeah, this kind of reminds me of that American Dad where Stan tries to prove a point by dousing his food in horseradish, and then he ends up blowing out his colon and needs a new one. He's like, if anyone has a size 4 colon, that'd be great.
This is like First We Feast hot ones with this. I mean, this is wasabi hot. So, it's definitely a nasal passage purifier. Serving size 1 teaspoon. That's a lot. Doesn't have, hardly has any sodium in it. What on earth makes this so hot? Ingredients: horseradish root, water, vinegar, corn oil, salt, and natural flavor, which is could mean anything.
Maybe it's like platform 9 3/4 in the Harry Potter movies, and books, where you just because you believe it's hot, like it's hot. It's kind of like
you want some?
Oh God, no! I'm the only Puerto Rican on earth who can't handle spicy food, but it's also kind of like the Shamrock Shake. Of is there a mint flavor or is it literally just green dye food coloring? So yeah.
Oh, this is good. I like my pleasure spiked with pain, and music is my aeroplane.
Oh, that was a great yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Man. So Nick has been talking for a while, and I've been eating a bowl of chicken with horseradish in it.
Hey, to be fair, normally when I stop at the Rudders, all I get is just 2 chicken breasts, and I just cut them up because the Rudders, they know how to do chicken breasts. They season it beautifully, and I don't know if it's, it's probably just, the bulk chicken breast like Bro Science gets, and he's teaching you how to make it right, but... It's still fantastic in that regard, and I'm just, I don't know. You can't go wrong with chicken breast. Like, really, it's an all-purpose, absolute good.
I don't know. I've been getting pretty good with pan-frying chicken lately. I've been using I've been breading it, and I've been the breading I'm using is not for chicken but for seafood. And I put as much pepper as you would put in chicken seasoning. I put in twice that. Also powdered onion, and then with a few teaspoons of vegetable oil, or sometimes I'm fancy, I'll use the olive oil or peanut oil. And I know it'd be better if it was purely grilled, but I think I'm fine with a little bit of carbohydrates and fat, although they say oil isn't really bad for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a variation of things that get put in your body. I mean, realistically, for me, like today, and this is my average day of, I make a smoothie, and the only thing that changes is what's in it, but it'll be, you know, a fruit, a green, some kind of nut, and then flax seeds and water. And then it blends together and you're good. Then I do it again for lunch. And then I, you know, in between, I'm having, you know, maybe like a Lara bar or, you know, one of those things. And then for dinner, it's usually chicken breast or salmon. Because I go hard with salmon. It's just fantastic. It's so wonderfully... The only thing with salmon is that, like, I'm kind of still hungry after. It's not really the most filling fish in the world, but...
How do you cook it?
I just on the stove in foil.
Oh, okay.
Or not on the stove in foil, but I mean I cook it in foil and I put it bake.
Oh, okay, in the oven.
So it's basically baked salmon. But it's kind of a very nice little meal. In fact, I don't know. I spend a lot on salmon, so I need to like reduce and get something that's less pricey, especially because I think I don't even know necessarily that there is such a thing as bulk salmon, but if there is, it probably isn't good. Or at least I can't imagine it would be the way that bulk chicken breast would be.
Right.
In the sense that, you know, bulk chicken breast, like, what are you really going to do to it? As long as there's no antibiotics or GMOs or whatever the crazy word of the day is, you're great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez, you eat way healthier than I. My breakfast is oatmeal with either raisins or craisins in it. Then I get to editing.
Yeah.
Then I start drinking coffee, and then I have a feel-good food, which is bad, which is usually a chocolate chip muffin. I eat that with my coffee. Lunchtime comes, and sometimes I eat lunch, but sometimes I skip it, in that I will eat whatever's left over from last night reheated. And then usually in my afternoon I don't eat anything. But that's a lie, because if I go to my parents' house, I will just start eating stuff.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what it is. And then for dinner, I have a rice cooker out there, and it's the same two sides every single night. It's rice and steamed vegetables. It cooks in the rice cooker. I probably mentioned this before. And then it's a revolving door of whatever meat I want, either chicken, ground beef, or pork. And it's usually, or sometimes when they run specials, this turkey sausage that Boyer's has. And so, and then that's it. Yeah. That's my dinner, which I'm trying to eat earlier.
Yeah, same thing. Like, I'm trying to do the whole early dinner thing, because being raised in an Hispanic household, we typically always ate dinner really late. As a kid, I would eat dinner at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And then I'd be in bed at 9, and, you know, it'd be whatever. But ultimately, I think I'm trying to kind of break the cycle and have dinner at maybe like 6:30, 7.
Yeah.
So that then, because I was listening to this on Rogan, I think it was, somebody talking about how, you know, there's an 8-hour window where you should eat, and then a 16-hour window where your body is just digesting and processing everything. So I think ultimately I just want to sort of get in the habit of eating better. See, the difference between you and I is that even if I technically eat better, you're way more active than I am, in the sense that, like, yes, I did go swimming for like a few hours today, but that was mostly in service of babysitting my nephew, or kid sitting. I don't really feel comfortable calling it babysitting anymore, but it's weird because he's 10 now, which is insane to me. But yeah. And then, you know, there are other things where, you know, this past week, for instance, like I couldn't really go anywhere because I had to wait for Red Betty to get out of the shop because I was having weird steering, like there was a groaning sound, and the wheel wasn't fighting me or anything. I did the downhill test that you recommended to see if it was a power steering issue. It wasn't, but I took it to my guy, and basically I got an alignment, I got new tie rod ends, and that was basically it. And now the groaning's gone, so it seemed to have been some kind of a mystery of why it was groaning. But they did tell me that, you know, just keep an eye on the power steering. That's something that, you know, it's, I don't know, next time I bring it in for like a checkup to whoever it is I usually go to, because this time I went somewhere different from the usual place. Because the usual place didn't have an appointment early enough, and I'm very paranoid about that type of thing. I was more nervous taking it to the shop than I've been for any doctor's appointment that I've had in years. No, just because I'm like realizing how much I love my car, and realizing that I don't want to lose her, and, you know, suddenly, and also the money, you know, it's, I don't have, I can't just, you know, go, I don't know. I just didn't want to be quoted for a price to fix her that was more than the car was worth. But never me,
pay more than half. Like if you ever get it's a $4,000 car, or
I paid 44. I nagged the guy down from 46. That's
nice.
That's my ace skills. And I brought you with me on that day. Because, you know, they always recommend having someone else who's gonna ask all the right car questions there. And it was almost kind of like a good cop, bad cop, or like a dumb cop, smart cop type thing of, I play the person who doesn't really, you know what he wants and isn't sure what to look for. And then you're just kind of, you know, working the suspenders and well, how about and all this, and hey, I see this. You were actually the one who pointed out that the rear defroster wasn't attached properly. He's like, oh yeah, that's good. That's like that. But I took it anyway because it's like it was like a $5 fix. But yeah, anyway, the Red Betty's fine. She's running well. I need to put gas in her on the way home from here. But other than that, everything's great.
Cool. The Falcon had been at Bruce's for a while because I drive that car really hard and I break stuff on it. I don't break the car, but, you know, stuff rattles loose. And so we're going to do a video over at Bruce's to show you the new stuff that's been done to the Falcon to make it more livable. The big thing was exhaust manifold gasket, because it had another exhaust leak on the other bank. So a new one of them put in. Bus hub, which is to clean up the wiring. Helper springs in the back to keep the rear end from dragging, ghetto dragging. When you put a whole bunch of stuff in the trunk and people in the back seat, the rear end of the Falcon would just squat down. So this extra leaf springs, they're at a leaf, they're the helper springs. You bolt those things on, and now the rear end sits a little bit higher, so it's a little bit muscle car looky in the back. I like it. I think I need to paint them black to match the rest of the leaf springs. Yeah. And also Summit Racing hooked me up with a thermal gasket for the carburetor, because even though the cooling's been getting better, we're still chasing it. We don't want this cooling to climb. So the Falcon now has a thermal gasket in between the carburetor and the intake, and that's supposed to stop heat from going from the intake manifold into the carburetor and causing vapor lock when it's really, really hot outside. also, now when I took it from, picked it up from Bruce's, it wasn't shifting into fourth gear. Like I didn't get overdrive. It's weird. I'm out on the highway. I'm like, I'm revving high. What's up with this? It was also shifting later or weird. Bruce said to tighten the TV cable, also known as the kickdown cable, and Bruce called it the detent cable. To tighten that up a little bit more, he said about 1/8 inch to tighten it and see if that works. And I did that, but then I got talking to my neighbor, and then Nick called and said, "Yo, I'm here. Where are you?" And I'm like, "Oh." So after this, depending on how I'm feeling, do I want to do that? Do I want to work on the car at night?
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how, people secreting up to someone in their garage or working on a car, and then all of a sudden you hear about it on the news where, there was an Allen and I don't even know. But it's kind of strange in the sense that I could almost make an entire video out of just interviewing you and having you go over the history of problems, or not even necessarily problems, but challenges you've run into with the Falcon, because this has been a several year endeavor. And what's interesting to me is that this is a lot of what people don't see. For instance, Matt Farah made this post on Instagram that was literally just a picture of a new show that a description of a new show that Netflix was making, that it was all just about these three guys who have a garage, they're flipping cars and then selling them super expensively. And Matt is explaining how, every time he's been in any sort of network pitch, he's wanted it to be, hey, all I want to do is show off our awesome roads, drive some cool cars, and show how cars unite us and divide us. But executives are always like, yeah, but do you have like two other funny friends and like a garage where you can flip cars? Mm-hmm. And you realize now the amount of those types of like, hey, we're flipping cars in our special garage show that there are. And those shows rarely, if ever, show off the practical problems that continue to happen once the car is technically done. Yeah. It's like the car is never really done. Yeah. It's in working order and can work, but I don't know that it's ever completely finished.
Right. No, custom car, like classic cars are never ever done. They're never, they're continually evolving or something. The only classic cars that are done are the Winga Dinga guys who get it. They get it running, they get it driving, not able to be driven far, and then they just wax it forever like Ferris Bueller's dad, and the cars don't go anywhere. They sit in the garage looking nice, and it only comes out when there's no chance of rain and low humidity and all the crap is gone from the roads after winter. They drive it to the car shows, they get out their folding chairs, they sit in front of their fucking Malibu, and then nothing. The car is immaculate, it runs, but the car never goes more than 10 miles. That is a done classic car. Yeah. It's not something that you're just going to drive in all weather and things like that. And you have 53-year-old wiring in it. And so the car's over half a century old. Stuff is wearing out on it that needs to be replaced constantly. Eventually, there will be bits of the body that gets cut out and new panels welded in there. Now, I think the reason that executives now want to, make that we're gonna flip cars because a show like that is equally pied up into Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Yeah. Act 1, get the car. Oh, this is a piece of crap. Act 2, scenes of wrenches turning and sparks and welding. And then Act 3, and then the seller, I'll give you this, but I'll give you this, so I'll give you this. Cut to, I think I got a good deal. We think we got a good deal. Done. Yeah. Put a bow on that. Put a bow on that episode.
And it's cheap to make and easily digestible, and you don't have to worry about a writer, technically, in the sense that, there's somebody writing the little narration in between things, but you're not worrying about crafting a narrative for a car the way that, in Matt's pitch, what's the difference? Right. It's like, I don't know.
It offends no one. It excites no one. It's like, there was this one episode of Parks and Recreation where they had a contest for a new mural inside the office, and some guy came up with like the Salute to America one. Other ones came up with really touching ones, and Ben Wright? No, that's our guy. Ben Wyatt.
Ben Wyatt.
Yeah. The guy who sounds like me. I forget.
The guy played by Adam Scott.
Adam Scott.
Yeah.
He shows this picture and he says, "This is going to win." And what it was a calm picture of a man feeding ducks. Just an older man on a park bench. It was like watercolored. You don't even see. It's like sort of like a muddy face. It's all very dreamlike. Just a man feeding ducks. He says, "This is going to win." He says, "That guy went too hard with the Salute to America. That one's too challenging. This challenges no one. It has no message. It is completely benign.
Yeah.
This is what's going to win to the most amount of people. This is what's going to be acceptable to the most amount of people." And then, like, Ron Swanson walks by and goes, "I like that." And then it wins.
And that's exactly what it is. It's the literary definition of the word pablum. It's not challenging. It's there to...
Pablum.
Yeah. It's... and there's a more specific definition for the word pablum that I think has more of a brain matter type definition to it. But ultimately, I think those types of shows are popular, the flipping the shows, for the reasons you said, and also because it's a weird mishmash of other shows too. It's American Masters or whatever that, the motorcycle guys, the three, the father, the son, and the and the Holy Broast. And then you get Pawn Stars in there too in the third act, kind of.
Right.
Because you're bartering.
You put it on at a bar. You don't even need sound.
Yeah! Because it's not even about necessarily the personalities of the guys either.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them have friends or fans, but, it's...
You can have a showrunner. It doesn't matter if these people have no acting. Well, they don't. They're not actors. But you have a showrunner that says, "Okay, you look at this camera, you say these lines.
Yeah.
You look at this camera." I mean, you watch it and the show's fucking, it's cooked more than ramen.
Good line. It's overproduced in a way that any British reality show, I liken it to the difference between Gordon Ramsay's American shows and his British shows. His British shows are so entertaining and so down to earth and endlessly watchable. And then you see something like the American version of Kitchen Nightmares or the 24 hours show where he has to remake everybody's restaurant in a single day or whatever. And it's just the most overproduced garbage. And I just kind of hate that that's our brand, like America's brand for television. Yeah. Now, granted, America doesn't have Love Island like the UK does, but we have Bachelor in Paradise, which is more or less the same thing. And it's just, it's exhausting to think about.
I don't think it's possible to show through a visual medium the joy of moving a part on a car that last crucial 1/16 of an inch to make it fit. Because it's tactile.
Yeah.
Now that would be a challenge for a great writer, a great producer to express through the visual and the auditory the tactile. If you could finally have that click, then maybe. You would have to have a crew following a build for a while.
Yeah.
And usually when you're filming these areas, like between a transmission and an engine that you can't get to. No camera really can get in there. Although that new lens that got a bunch of hits, their video went viral. It's a new type of macro lens for filming stuff really up close. And it's made for digital SLRs, and the lens looks like an anteater's tongue. If the camera is here, the end of the lens is here. It's this thin tube with all these little lenses in it.
Like a xenomorph opening its mouth.
Yeah.
Just
the idea is that you could get this camera into tight spots. And not only that, but it has a ring light at the very end to light up whatever. Like, it has built-in lights, so you're not starved for light if you're in a dark place.
Because what you're describing is kind of something that it would take the sort of depth of feature film to accomplish.
Yeah.
That's the climax of a film that is only about that. That's the only way that I could imagine it working. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of a movie that has a similar thing of this thing isn't working, now it works. But I can't think of any that has that component where, all right, it finally, just a little bit over and now
then it fits.
And then
that nut goes in, that click. Yeah, people in the chat said that sounds hot. We would get that, but we'd never make our money back.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that is for a very specific niche audience.
Right.
That, other people, you would be having to explain that film or that climax to people for a very long time.
It's like it took 3 watches of Renoir's The Grand Illusion for me to get it. I'm like, holy shit, this is genius. But it requires a back knowledge then of Western Europe politics and kings and queens and understanding modernism and all that other stuff, and I finally get this. Confession, still not have seen Rules of the Game all the way through. But
I haven't seen it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, my only Renoir film is Grand Illusion, and I loved it on the first watch, but it took me multiple watches to get why it was genius. Like, you can articulate that you like something, but you can't really explain why until it took some time. Kind of like Tokyo Story. That was another one that we watched in Schwartz class, and I did my report on it, on how it was basically about the use of color in a black and white film, a cinematography type thing. And it was how it showed because basically Tokyo Story is about this old couple who's eagerly anticipating the arrival of their children to visit, their adult children, and then I think they never come, or one of them comes and it's weird.
The kids are grown, they have their own lives.
Yeah.
And you understand it's a good movie for Westerners because it shows how much they want to have loving parental moments with their kids who have grown up, moved on, and don't need them anymore. Yeah. And like so many snobby British films, before Lady Chatterley's Lover, showed how there are all these emotions. There's a rip current of emotions under polite society.
That's a good point.
Because if you look visually, the old people clearly aren't upset. But all they wanted was time with their kids. But then there's that long scene where I think the daughter and the mother go out on and go to town. And there's wonderful panning shots of modern Tokyo. Yeah. Yeah. Then contrasted against, their home in the farmlands.
Yeah. And it's one of those movies that I think benefits from the viewer going in with an expectation of how Eastern society portrays their relationships with or how they perceive their relationships with the family. Yeah. Because it's almost like this deconstruction of the expectation of the tiger mom or the tiger parents, where they're looming over and all they care about is that their children are successful and that they don't bring shame. And it creates in Westerners this idea that, is their love involved at all, or do they only care about the material. And that's not true at all. Like they love their kids and miss their grown kids as much as anybody would. And perhaps even more, because there's the society and the culture in which they're embedded is so work obsessed in a way.
Yeah.
So
whenever you see the eldest son, it's always, he's at the tire factory.
Yeah.
And the phone's ringing, and oh, mom is here. It's like, well, I have to work late, and the mother understands.
Yeah.
There's no unreasonable, well, you gotta come home now, like some Midwestern comedy.
Yeah.
Like, no, she understands. But there's the acting's great.
Yeah, I feel like the tragedy of the film is that the parents understand they aren't needed anymore. It's not just the heartbreak of having your kids grow beyond you, but grow to a point where you almost feel like you can't be upset about it because this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But not entirely, because it's, I don't know, it's family, it's generational, it's cultural, it's everything. It's all boiled down into this strange, wonderfully beautiful stew of visual, and it's just a great visual poem in a way, almost, as a film.
It's a slow movie.
Oh, incredibly
what we're talking
so.
about, yeah.
But all of Ozu's films are.
Yeah.
So
you bring this to a sleepover, you'll never go to another one again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unless the goal of the sleepover is for everyone to get to bed really early. So it's just, yeah. But the same is true of Grand Illusion, I think. Well, that's a little more, that has more.
Yeah, this is about war.
Yeah, but also...
It's a war film that isn't about war.
Yeah.
I love French films, pretentious and boring. I love French films too. Tickets, please.
I don't know. It's fantastic.
There's this freaking... Oh, there's a great scene in Grand Illusion as opposed to all of them. But it's where they're escaping from the first prison. And... and they're there making I guess they're working on their costumes for the play. French film.
Yes.
At the same time they're digging this escape tunnel, but there's this one moment where Bourdieu looks out the window, and there's all the young German soldiers, because these are French pilots in a German prison camp during World War I. And they look out the window and see the young German soldiers, like enlisted people. I mean, most of the characters portrayed in Grand Illusion are officers. They're older men. And they look out the window, and one of them says, "Out there, children playing as soldiers, and in here, soldiers playing as children." And I wanted to use that in something else, but I don't know what.
I mean, it'll present itself in something at some point, I think. The same way, the intertextuality thing. Like, I wanted to use that for a while, and then the Phoenix came along, and I was like, it'll fit here.
The I don't know which I like better, like the narrative, the spoken narrative or the visual narrative. I think I like the visual narrative of Grand Illusion better, because in a modern sense there's Wes Anderson-esque stuff, which then you could probably say on some level Renoir could have been an influence on Wes Anderson, but there is a lot of symmetrical shots going on in Grand Illusion, but it's usually windows.
Yeah.
Like the scene where the men look out. It's from the shot of the men looking in, or it's a shot looking into the window of the prison building of the French soldiers looking out, and then it's a reverse shot of them looking out on the German soldiers doing their drills out there. And most of the men had their own window pane within this larger picture window.
Yeah, because it's kind of a castle. Like, the prison is almost like a castle in a weird way. It has that very specific architecture that is I don't know. It's just so visually distinctive for its own time. And even for this one, too. I mean, I feel like there's a lot that people could glean out of a film like this, especially when times are as divisive as they are.
Yeah.
But I did appreciate the amount of the lack of asymmetry in it, in the sense that a lot of movies at the time, particularly noir films, but you get a lot of Dutch angles for no reason.
Yeah.
And I think part of it's just supposed to be disorienting, but I also feel like it kind of comes at the expense of really getting being able to take the fullness of the visual narrative in.
Our tripod has an extra hinge on it, and god damn it, we're going to use it.
There it goes.
One of my tripods has that hinge for a Dutch angle. I've never used it once.
You should create
Not the good one that we use, the other one.
You should create a film student character who's just sort of Dutch angles and Dutch angles and Dutch angles.
Oh, you like it? 30 degrees. 33 point motherfucking 3 degrees.
Cracking an egg on the pan in black and white as the world's smallest violin plays.
Yeah, my influences are They Might Be Giants. That's not film. I'm talking about Anna Ang. Have you ever seen the video for that?
No.
It's funny. It's so pretentious and funny. I mean, the idea that was shot in like 89 or something like that. that They Might Be Giants predates Nirvana breaking out. Anyway.
I don't even know. To be honest, I honestly don't know that much about Nirvana, like how long they were together before they actually hit it big.
I don't know either. But anyway, They Might Be Giants hit it big before Nirvana did.
But they did get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on the first ballot, so good for them. And there are a lot of people who are mad now that like this year Bon Jovi got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I think it was their first ballot, if I'm not mistaken. But other people who were nominated or who were eligible on the first ballot, because it's like 25 years after your first album with a major label, were Radiohead and Rage Against the Machine, and people were furious that neither one got in. I'm just like, their time will come if they deserve it, I guess. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, we're gonna wrap this up and get to the super chats in a little bit. Don't go nowhere.
Yeah,
we'll be back. Thank you to everybody who listens on Shout Engine and iTunes. Thank you to everybody who donates through Patreon. I know I haven't updated the Patreon page in a year or so. It has all the old goals on there, but what we're using the Patreon for is for travel. And to answer Roy and Matthew, or really Roy, when are you going back to Harris Hill? Yeah, that's what the Patreon is for, going back to Harris Hill. And Andrew says, what time is Super Chat? Like in 15 minutes. Give us 15 minutes to get ready, and then we'll be right back here again for Super Chat.
Yeah, I'm going to upload this to the Shout Engine during the break, and during the break.
Yeah.
And give it a different title, because we were locked out of the place that allows us to set up the live stream properly. So the Super Chat is likely going to have Glenn Live It Let Die again, but
we'll fix that.
It'll be fine.
To answer like Burgundy Burnouts' question and anybody else, there's a Patreon. Yeah, it's all in the info on every single video we do. It's permanently there. You can see the links in there.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in a little bit.
Have a good week, guys.
See ya.